A short walk from the Pacific Ocean is a cottage with hanging wisteria covering the walkway that leads to its front door. The La Jolla Historical Society has an exhibit inside called Order Disorder, Belonging in Nature, which highlights the local coastal area and prompts people to think about how we must preserve the environment. A suspended bridge of papier-mâché rocks was cast from real rocks gathered by visitors. It's titled Memories We Held, signifying the different experiences and backgrounds of the people involved, along with the physical connection each shared in the creation of art by using something from nature. The empty shell castings float in midair, containing rocks that are no longer there, made by artists who are no longer seen. There are several three-dimensional works of art that portray the delicate ecosystems of coral reefs in our oceans. The majority of coral reefs are centered around the Earth's equator. Despite this, they cover less than 1% of the ocean floor. The shiny glazed surface of these sculptures give them a wet look, as if they have just been lifted out of the water. Coral reefs look like they are comprised of a multitude of colorful and varied plant life. While the vibrant colors are produced by algae within the coral reef is mostly made up of animals. Corals actually have a symbiotic relationship with algae within their tissues. The algae harnesses sunlight to produce sugars, oxygen, and energy for the coral. In turn, the tiny coral creatures, called polyps, make carbon dioxide and nutrients for photosynthesis. In April 2024, the world is witnessing the fourth global coral bleaching event in recent decades. Roughly 54% of corals have experienced bleaching throughout our oceans in the last year, and that percentage is increasing by 1% every week, on track to surpass the previous peak of 56%. Coral bleaching is caused by global warming and the associated elevated temperatures in the water. When corals are hit with aquatic heat waves, they become distressed and are forced to spit out the algae living within their tissues. This breaks the symbiosis, making them lose their color and cuts off their source of sustenance. They are vulnerable to disease, starvation, and death. If water temperature quickly drops back to a more manageable level, coral bleaching can be reversed. For that, we must do our part to reduce pollution of our oceans, decrease fossil fuels burned and vented into the Earth's atmosphere, and limit deforestation to maintain trees for photosynthesis of oxygen and energy. The largest congregation of coral reefs lie in the Coral Triangle, a 2.2 million square mile area in the western Pacific Ocean, between the Philippines and Malaysia in the west and the Solomon Islands to the east. The Coral Triangle is considered an underwater rainforest, being home to over 75% of the planet's coral species and over 3,000 species of fish, including larger ones like the coelacanth and the whale shark. The medium used for these coral sculptures is ceramic made with calcium carbonate as one of its main components. It draws a direct parallel with the coral reef being portrayed, as they are created from thousands of coral polyps which secrete a hard outer skeleton of limestone or calcium carbonate that fuses to rock or dead skeletons of other polyps. The symbiosis of the coral reef sustains its life by providing for itself. It also serves fish, sea turtles, and other animals by becoming a shelter, food source, or even a cleaning station where larger marine animals can have parasites removed by smaller cleaning fish and shrimp. Coral reefs support 25% of all marine life, provide millions of people with food and recreation, and contribute to jobs, goods, and services worth $375 billion. We must fight climate change to save coral reefs, as they have a profound impact on our lives, as well as the health of our planet. These two pieces of art give us a bigger picture of the ecosystems surrounding the San Diego area. They are made of recycled and weatherized copper sheets, aluminum, and wood. On the left is a topographical map that shows how the Los Penasquitos Creek and its surrounding watershed drain into the Scripps and La Jolla underwater canyons. The piece on the right portrays the Tijuana River Valley and its watershed. A watershed is a drainage basin where all precipitation converges into a single outflow from the mountains to the ocean. Here's another that shows the hydrology of the Tijuana River Valley, this time marking the path of flow with bicycle chains. It may be the artist's way of letting us know to keep our rivers free of pollution, for the benefit of the plants and animals in the ocean, and ultimately ourselves. On one wall is a simple photo of a lady wearing a round hat, a dress, and boots with her arms akimbo. The description plainly says, Virginia Scripps adorned with seaweed. Virginia Scripps was the half-sister of Ellen Browning Scripps and was part of the philanthropic Scripps family that has shaped the La Jolla community as well as San Diego. In 1897, Virginia was invited by Ellen to live with her in La Jolla. The 1904 Wisteria Cottage that now houses the La Jolla Historical Society was once the home of Virginia Scripps. Here she is pictured in front, at the dawn of the last century. On the extreme left of this family portrait is Virginia with Ellen in white. The two sisters had different personalities, with Ellen being college-educated and reserved, while Virginia was loud, outgoing, and eccentric. Virginia always insisted on a clean community, hounding others to pick up after themselves, and even disliked trees that would drop leaves making a mess on the ground. She often wore clothes in the shade of her favorite color, purple. The purple wisteria at the entrance to the cottage are in remembrance of her. It's fascinating to think she walked these very same floors and halls over 100 years ago. The Scripps family made their fortune in printing and publication of newspapers. But what a difference a century makes! With the technological advances of the internet, computers, and smartphones, printed newspapers are almost obsolete and have been replaced with digital forms by their creators. This year 2000 newspaper article is ironic, declaring the internet a passing fad. Printed photographs are also becoming relics of the past, because now virtually everyone has access to a camera in their pocket. If we travel back before the invention of the camera, how could a memory be captured without use of a camera and without use of a lens? Sure, there was painting and drawing, but another method is what hangs before us in the exhibit. They are called cyanotypes and were developed about the same time photography took hold in the mid-1800s. Here's the story of how optics led to the origin of cyanotypes. In the 4th century BC, an ancient Chinese text mentioned how a pinhole can collect light in such a way that it flips the image of an object when light reflected off that object passes through the pinhole. About the same time, Greek philosopher Aristotle noticed that the light from a solar eclipse filters through tiny gaps between tree leaves, producing many images of the eclipse that can be viewed indirectly. In the 11th century, the father of modern optics and polymath Al-Hassan ibn al-Haytham used a scientific method to conclude light travels in straight lines. When focused through a pinhole, these rays of light produce an image on a surface on the other side that is both inverted and reversed. In the early 1500s, another polymath, Leonardo da Vinci, was very interested in how light behaves when it travels through a pinhole, drawing some 270 diagrams in his notebooks. He related this optical phenomenon to how the human eye works. Light that travels through our pupils, which are essentially pinholes, follows a straight line path generating what would be an inverted and reversed image on our retina. The retina actually has rod and cone photoreceptors, which convert the light into electrical impulses, sending them to our brain. By 1604, German mathematician, astronomer, and astrologer Johannes Kepler coined the term camera obscura. In Latin, it stands for dark chamber, referring to the darkened room or space where a pinhole image is projected. Later on, lenses would replace the pinhole to allow for a larger aperture, resulting in a brighter and more distinct image. The camera obscura could be used by some artists or draftsmen to sketch people, landscapes, or architecture by simply tracing over the lines of the projected image. In a way, it could be thought of as an early form of artificial intelligence, which allowed even those not artistically inclined to produce images or portraits by outlining what was seen by the camera obscura. Works by artists like Canaletto, Rembrandt, and Vermeer in particular became controversial because a question would arise. Is the realism portrayed a masterful creation of their talent, or simply a painted tracing sketched from a camera obscura? It seems this very question is emerging in our modern era, where computer-generated music, video, and voice may threaten to take our creativity and identities, leaving us to merely trace the outlines. For those of us wary of technology,
yes, I love technology.
A camera obscura requires no electricity, only the natural power of the sun.
Always and forever.
Even today, camera obscura can be made by anyone with a few materials and used to safely view solar eclipses like the one that recently occurred on April 8, 2024. Here are projections from that eclipse as seen in San Diego. Several pinholes were punctured through cardstock, and you can see how the resulting images at the peak show the sun to be crescent-shaped. The first photograph in history was created in 1826 by Joseph Niepce in France. Here's the original, made by coating a pewter metal plate with a light-sensitive substance called bitumen of Judea, then exposing it to sunlight using a camera obscura setup. The image has been flipped in both directions so we see the true orientation. Here's a color-enhanced version that depicts the wing of a house, a pigeon coop, a tree, and a barn. Bitumen of Judea is a naturally occurring asphalt that hardens in the sun, permanently attaching the projected image to the pewter plate. It's not much to look at, but it literally paved the way for the advancements in photography we've seen over the last 2 centuries. Sir John Herschel was another polymath as an active astronomer, mathematician, inventor, and chemist. In 1842, he wanted a way to copy his notes, diagrams, and scientific records. He discovered his answer in 2 particular iron salts, which could be applied to paper in the dark and allowed to dry. Once this paper was introduced to the ultraviolet rays of the sun, washed with water, then dried, a deep Prussian blue color would appear in the exposed areas. What we see here in the exhibit are silhouettes of objects placed next to the cyanotype paper as it was exposed to the sun. The objects blocked the solar radiation from reaching the paper, causing an image to form where the objects were present. Like the camera obscura, cyanotype requires the power of the sun and doesn't rely on electricity. Another advantage of cyanotype is there is no need for a darkroom while capturing the image, and in theory, no limit to the size of the cyanotype produced. Greater detail and gradients of the Prussian blue hue can be controlled by overlaying the cyanotype paper with a negative image printed on transparency. Whereas camera obscura allowed draftsmen or artists to outline the architecture of a real structure or form of a person, cyanotype furthered this effort by opening a new method for duplicating existing drawings, onto blue paper, of course. The straightforward and relatively quick replication process of cyanotype became widespread for use with technical designs and drawings, which we now fittingly call blueprints. Although it has been replaced with modern printers and copiers, the cyanotype process is still used in artistic creations, like the ones here that represent the coastal elements and natural wildlife of La Jolla. Here is an extreme close-up of a single grain of sand enveloped by kelp. The artist wants to communicate how life can be renewed, no matter the adversity or challenges faced. This concept extends from what we experience in our lives to the larger view of our surroundings and environment. With the right decisions and actions, we can reduce the pollution of our oceans, preserve the plants and animals in its ecosystems, and maintain the balance of life on our planet for generations to come. If you enjoyed this video and all the original music, help this channel grow for free. Leave a comment below, click like, share this video and channel with others, and click the button to subscribe. Thanks for watching San Diego Review.